Yeah, he's he's literally degenerating right before our very eyes. I mean, it's frankly just so sad. But you know what's even sadder? I mean, this is the best the Democrats have got. This is their best. They know they've literally got no one else, and they're saying it openly. They got no one else. Gruesome Newsom is polling even worse than Biden. Not to mention cackles Kamala, right? The wheels on the bus go round and round Kamala. I mean, what you just saw there was nothing less than a symbol of the Democrat Party itself. In many ways, as we saw with President Xi over the week, it was a symbol of the Washington globalist establishment that's literally crumbling into mummified dust right before our very eyes. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you've already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are live on both YouTube and Rumble. Super chats and super stickers are up. Send me your questions. I will answer them in due course. We got a huge ruling coming out of New York today in a New York appellate court. Trump has scored a major victory in that sham kangaroo court case in New York. We're going to see the latest on that. And we're going to get an overview, real sort of aerial, high-level overview of the current state of 2024, where we stand right now. I'll just say this. We're talking leads that overwhelmingly exceed the margins of fraud, particularly in the very battleground states that count. Wait until you see the latest on this. It's going to blow your mind. All that and more on this Livestream Friday. Again, super chats, super stickers are up. Send me your questions. But before we do anything else, you know, I've been teasing you all week that I got something big coming up here. And now I get to share it with you. You ready? Sit back. Earlier this year, to celebrate my channel reaching 1 million subscribers, that wonderful milestone that you made possible, you might remember that I took my team on a cruise to the Caribbean, and it was amazing. We were at the Bahamas, we were in Saint Martin's. We were, oh, look at that! You see all this beautiful stuff. We were in Saint Thomas. So I've been planning to go on another trip with my team this summer to celebrate some other big milestones that we've been hitting as a company. But I thought, you know, we wouldn't hit these milestones without you. Wouldn't it be better if the people who enabled us to have this platform in the first place and supported me over the years, would it be better if you came with us? So, gang, we're going to make that happen. I just put down a deposit on a 7-day Mediterranean cruise coming up this August. All right. I believe it's the first week of August. We're talking Spain, France, Italy, and you are invited on that cruise. I'd love to have you sail with me around the old world as we celebrate the rise of conservative culture and the fall of globalists. I seriously I can't wait for this. My team has made arrangements for you to go on private tours with me in these historical cities and special excursions. Plus, I'm going to do daily training throughout the trip, along with some special guests on how to ultimately help you think better so you can feel better, especially going into the 2024 election, which promises to be utterly epic. Now, I know you have many questions about what this might look like, so I'm holding a little Q&A about this trip coming up on November 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern. And all you have to do is just click on the link below and register for that live Q&A. So just click on that link and learn how you can join us for this incredible journey, and how I'm even, you ready? Gets even better. I'm even giving away a cabin on this ship. So come and learn about how you might be able to come on this amazing trip to Spain and France and Italy for free. I kid you not. It's that cool. It's that amazing. We've got about 30 cabins available. So if you're interested at all, just make sure to click on that link below and come to that live Q&A to learn more. Seriously, gang, this is going to be the trip of a lifetime, and I'm so excited to share more of it with you. So make sure to sign up for the cruise Q&A. Click on that link below. If you can't make it to the Q&A live, I'll make sure to send you a recording. Just make sure to register by clicking on the link below. And it's going to be a perfect, if you think it through, this will be a perfect Christmas gift to surprise your family with. I did that with my wife a couple of years back with our Verona trip. I gave her it as a Christmas gift. And so I can't wait to see you guys there. It's going to be utterly epic. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. Trump just got what many are calling a huge victory in court. An appeals court has stepped in and once again lifted a gag order imposed on President Trump by Mr. Freeze Miser himself. The publicly half-naked New York joke of a justice, Arthur Engoron. Don't you think he looks like Freeze Miser? Remember Freeze Miser from A Year Without Santa Claus? I mean, it's uncanny. That is when he actually has his clothes on. I don't want to contemplate what he resembles then. You know, this is the same guy, this Freeze Miser judge. He has a penchant to post half-naked selfies on an alumni newsletter that he reportedly controls. I mean, the selfies are, to say the least, bizarre, but they suggest that all is not well with this fellow Judge Engoron. Something seriously wrong with Judge Freeze Miser. To say that he has a penchant for self-humiliation would be an understatement, but again, I think it just underscores just how bizarre this whole court case frankly is. And it appears that the appellate courts are agreeing. House GOP chairwoman Elise Stefanik of New York filed an ethics complaint accusing the judge of displaying ridiculous levels of judicial bias against President Trump, particularly his wife as well. And the appellate judge agreed, stating that Judge Freeze Miser's gag order on a presidential candidate during an election raises serious constitutional and statutory issues. Do you think so? Really? Placing a gag order on a major presidential candidate, the opposition party's candidate, during an election year? You think that poses some constitutional issues? I mean, slapping a gag order on a presidential candidate is par for the course in a banana republic. But a constitutional republic? Judge Freeze Miser apparently is going to have to think twice about that. So obviously Trump wasted no time in raising his voice in response to the lifting of this gag order. He took to Truth Social and utterly savaged the clowns behind this kangaroo court. Quote, AG Letitia Peekaboo James is running for governor of New York again. That's why she, with the help of a very complicit Judge Engoron, who has cut my values to a tiny fraction of what they really are worth in order to claim fraud, has brought this ridiculous case against me. Other businesses are seeing this miscarriage of justice as fleeing New York and are fleeing New York. Violent crime is not fleeing, however. It is setting new records on a daily basis. Now, this ruling that completely frees up Trump to say whatever he wants about this kangaroo court comes on the heels of another huge ruling in the state of Georgia. It's being widely reported that a federal district court judge there, has just ruled that the electronic voting machines used by the state of Georgia have substantial flaws, security flaws, and must undergo judicial review. Now, we talked about this in a video yesterday. Federal Judge Amy Totenberg, she's just denied a motion filed by Georgia election officials to dismiss a case that claims that the state's electronic voting system is indeed secure. And if you caught my video on this yesterday, the judge cited a study known as the Halderman Report. It's a report that was put together by University of Michigan computer science professor Alex Halderman. It supposedly identified a number of vulnerabilities, particularly in Dominion voting machines, vulnerabilities that have been corroborated, supposedly, again, by federal authorities as well. This according to an NBC News report. More than 20 cybersecurity experts has since defended Halderman's report, and apparently it has convinced this federal judge. So now there are going to be hearings in early January to determine whether Georgia can even use these electronic voting machines or whether they are, by virtue of their security risks, a violation of voting rights. I mean, gang, this is huge, precisely because if this judge does rule in early January that the use of these machines involves a violation of voting rights, obviously the sham Fulton County case against President Trump completely collapses. Trump is immediately exonerated as fighting against an election that, again, could have, again, not necessarily did, but could have been compromised given the nature of the voting equipment that was used. Moreover, to make matters even worse for these corrupt hacks, the Fulton County DA's office is now openly admitting that this trial for President Trump may end up stretching way past the 2024 election, getting well into 2025. Again, this is such a humiliation for Fannie Willis. I mean, I don't even know what to say here. Over and over again, Fannie Pants Willis, has been promising her fellow woke ilk that she would have Trump convicted by early next year, at the beginning of 2024. She's now admitting it probably ain't going to happen until 2025. It's going to go beyond the elections. And then you add on top of that this new federal court ruling calling into question the integrity of the very voting equipment that was used in Fulton County in 2020. I mean, you know, the whole thing is just unraveling right before our very eyes. And talk about unraveling. I mean, what do you even say about Biden at this point? I mean, this guy literally cannot find his way off a stage. I mean, seriously, this is a recurring problem. The guy doesn't know where he is. This is just what happened yesterday. The guy, he literally is unaware of his surroundings. And the Democrat establishment, they just simply can't hide it anymore. They can't hide it from voters. Everyone is seeing. I mean, let's be honest, they were relatively successful for the first year and a half of this regime. But now, I mean, it's just so painfully obvious to the vast majority of the nation. Wait until you see these polls. I mean, Biden is in a polling free fall right now, a free fall. Now, we knew this. If you're a regular to this channel, and if not, make sure you smack that bell and subscribe button. But if you're a regular to this channel, you'll know we have been predicting for months now that Biden's poll numbers were only going to get worse. It's because we have a historical pattern to draw from on that. The pattern for incumbents that has been inescapable in our nation's history. The pattern for incumbents is that during economic downturns, their poll numbers always fall. No incumbent has won re-election if there's even the perception of a recession in the last 2 years of their being in office. And when you compare our current economic downturn with Biden's own cognitive degeneracy happening, getting worse and worse right before our very eyes every single day, where the guy literally falls asleep mid-sentence as he tries to mutter his way through some incoherent, rambling speech. I mean, he's such an international embarrassment. I'll never forget when I was in Japan over the summer. I shared this with you guys with a video from there, live from there, right? If you could hear how the Japanese utterly mock and ridicule and laugh at this guy. I mean, it is so sad. And we're talking some of the most highly etiquette, polite people on the planet. Okay. You don't mock and ridicule publicly. They couldn't help themselves. He is such a bumbling fool at this point. And you combine those two things with the degenerating economy and a degenerating cognitive ability. I mean, the combination of those two are just putting him in a poll free fall. But the amazing news is that Trump, with his latest court triumph, is surging. He's experiencing the opposite. I mean, we're seeing polls now that are giving him a lead that never, ever had him in the lead like in the last 7 years. He's never been either in 2016 or 2020. Now he's in the lead. He's literally pummeling Biden in the polls. He has a lead over Biden now, comparable to the way Biden led Trump in 2020 in the polls. And that even includes Gavin Newsom, in case desperate Democrats try to throw him into the mix as well. Waiting till you see the latest. But first, gang, with everything going on right now, the radical instability and unpredictability that surrounds us, it requires us that we become very, very smart with our money. We never know what's really going to happen, often until it's too late. And so that's why I partnered with the amazing company Goldco, because I know the patriots there are ready to help you and guide you at a time like this. So go ahead and click on the link below right now and get your very own gold and silver kit absolutely free. They're patriots. They want to take care of you. This is absolutely free. This gold and silver kit shows you how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in retirement account like an IRA or a 401k. And get this, gang, you may even already qualify to get up to $10,000 in free silver. I told you they're patriots just like us, and they want to help. You've seen the writing on the wall. Don't wait until it's too late. Defend your freedoms by clicking on that link below right now and get your free gold and silver kit today. All right, gang, look at the latest polling. Let's start in the primaries. Trump is now up 41 in Florida. I'll say that again. He's up 41 in Ron DeSantis's Florida. Gang, that was not supposed to happen. The establishment snakes that bewitched Ron DeSantis into running, that convinced him, this is your time. The establishment that was going to take down Trump, they were, it's inevitable. Nobody gets indicted and then sees their poll numbers go up, right? Nobody. It's impossible. So we're going to make sure, we, the Republican establishment, we're going to make sure Trump gets slapped with indictment after indictment after indictment after. Remember, this is only happening because the Republican establishment is allowing it, right? Or actively behind it. We're going to slap him with indictment and he's going to get slapped with so many indictments. He's going to be slapped. Silly. This is your opportunity, Ron. Now's your moment. Those snakes, those vile Karl Rove Fox News snakes, never in their darkest nightmares imagined that 4 indictments later, Trump would be leading DeSantis by over 40 points in DeSantis's own freaking state of Florida. They told DeSantis, they told him he'd be leading Trump by double digits in Florida by this time in the primaries, right? Voters had it with Trump. Don't you remember that? Trump fatigue. That's all we heard about from the legacy media last spring. Trump fatigue. Trump fatigue. DeSantis is surging, they said, because of Trump fatigue. Voters have had it with him, sucking the oxygen out from everywhere he goes. They're done with him. DeSantis is the new standard bearer of MAGA that we, the legacy media, approve of because he doesn't send out mean tweets and he doesn't say mean things to us. And here we are, 4 indictments later, and Trump is viscerally crushing DeSantis by over 40 points in his own state. Trump is going to make every one of these single-digit midget primary candidates. They're going to make Liz Cheney look victorious in Wyoming's primary by comparison when she lost by 70 points. I mean, it's just astonishing. But in the general election, in the matchup with Biden, the crushing in many respects, all things considered, gets even worse. Look at the latest GQR poll. Okay, look at this. Look. For those of you by way of our podcast, almost 20 million downloaded podcasts on that. I will add there. Thank you very much for that. Look at this. Trump is beating Biden by nearly 10 points, 51 to 42. Look at, I mean, it stays the same when you add in RFK, a Hogan, a Manchin, others. It's still +9. I mean, it's astonishing. This is the, I believe, third or fourth poll in a row in the last month that shows Trump with a 10-point or near 10-point lead over Biden. I mean, gang, I deal with polls every single day. I talk a lot with Rich Barris, People's Pundit, my absolute favorite pollster in terms of analysis and the like. Gang, you've got to understand how astonishing that lead is. Well, here, let me getting ahead of myself. Let me go through some of the other polls that have just come out, and then we'll analyze the astonishment of them. All right, let's take a look at the latest YouGov poll. It just dropped today, just this morning. They now have Trump leading Biden for the first time in 9 months, according to their polling methodology. And that comes on the heels of the latest Quinnipiac poll that just dropped yesterday. Quinnipiac has Trump beating Biden 48 to 46. And what you have to get there is that Trump has never led a Quinnipiac poll ever. Again, this is according to their own polling methodology. So we're corroborating different polls with each other here, with one another. For whatever reason, given their methodology, Trump has never led a Quinnipiac poll ever. Quinnipiac had Biden +11 the day before the 2020 election. Quinnipiac had Clinton +6 for the 2016 election. Now, as of today, with that very same methodology, that's the very same sampling, same weighting system, you name it, Quinnipiac now has Trump up over Biden, leading him for the first time ever. The latest Fox News poll, which just dropped yesterday. Fox, remember, is notoriously liberal in their polling. Fox had Biden +8 in November. Can we switch it to the Fox poll? Fox had Biden +8 in November 2020. Take a look at this. Trump's beating Biden by 4 in a notoriously liberal poll, 50 to 46. And again, you'll notice that Trump is winning the majority vote there. It's not the electoral vote, not only just the electoral vote. Now it's a 4-point lead for Trump in the general election. He's winning the majority vote. This is in a poll that had Biden winning by 8 points in 2020. Then when you go to the swing states, it gets even worse. Trump is now leading Biden by nearly 10 in a state that he supposedly lost to Biden by 1, Arizona. In the latest Noble predictive poll, Trump is crushing Biden by 8 points in a state without which Biden simply cannot win this election. Trump is crushing him by 8 points. And I'm going to show you why it's going to even get higher in due course. Stay with me. In Florida, Trump is crushing Biden by double digits, 10 points. In Ohio, Trump is crushing Biden by 12 points. Now, remember, historically, the candidate who wins both Florida and Ohio wins the general election. That's the pattern in every election since 1864. There were 2 exceptions, 1960 and 2020, the 2 most contested elections with regard to accusations of fraud. So why is this all so astonishing? Well, again, we've got to put this all in perspective. At this time in the 2020 election, okay, so November 2019, this time out from the 2020 election, Trump was consistently 10 points behind Biden. He was 6 or 7 points behind Hillary. At no point, either in 2016 or in 2020, did Trump ever lead in the polls. According to the RCP aggregate, the Real Clear politics aggregate, the polling average. Biden had a polling average of +7 the day before the election. That's with all of the polls tightening and so forth. He still had a near double-digit lead over Trump. And even with that, together with all the utterly ridiculous shenanigans that the Democrats pulled in the completely and totally unprecedented sham of an election, in my personal opinion, even with all of that, Biden nevertheless won with barely 40,000 votes. With all of them, pull out the stops, mail in by the gazillions, he barely won by 40,000. 10,000 in Arizona, 10,000 margin in Georgia, 20,000 margin in Wisconsin. All of which were later, by the way, in Wisconsin, they were all thrown out by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. It was invalid. Even the far left site Slate.com recognized that the decision to nullify nearly 200,000 mail-in ballots in Wisconsin basically rendered the 2020 election illegitimate. That was from the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Unfortunately, it was 2 years after the fact, but the point here is that no matter how you look at this, Trump is today, everyone is admitting this now, Trump is today, as we stand, stronger than he has ever been. He is better positioned to be elected president than ever, either in 2016 when he won more electoral votes than any Republican in 30 years, or in 2020 when he won more votes than any incumbent ever won in our nation's history. I mean, you've got to get that. He is stronger today than he was when he won more electoral votes than a Republican in 30 years, and when he won more votes than any incumbent, Democrat or Republican, in our nation's history. He is now in a stronger position today than he was back then in either of those two historic scenarios. That's why the Democrats are panicking. That's why he's facing these indictments. They literally cannot believe that after 2 impeachments, after J6, after the J6, remember, J6 was supposed to be the single worst horrific crime against our nation since 9/11. After the J6 Kangaroo Committee and all their televised live hearings, with an ABC News executive being the producer of the rollout of that, after 24/7, 99.999% negative news media coverage, after night after night after night of late night clowns mocking him and ridiculing him, after the whole of Hollywood and universities and every single cultural institution stood up against him for the last 7 years, and after 4 indictments, they are absolutely beside themselves on how Trump could possibly be stronger today than he's ever been. They're dumbfounded. They are, as you say across the pond, they are gobsmacked. They are literally stupefied. And they have no idea what to do to stop what is appearing increasingly inevitable. And they're doing everything but looking into their own mirrors, because that's where the answer is for this. The vast majority of voters no longer trust our nation's establishment and establishment institutions as legitimate. And they see Trump as the one guy standing up against him. Now, I know many of you are speculating about Gruesome Newsom getting in the race and how that might change dynamics. But at this point, I mean, all the polls are showing the same thing, that he's doing just as bad, if not worse, than Biden. And this is even before his horrific record in California is going to be brought to the fore for everyone to see. I mean, Trump's campaign message could be as easy as possible. Hey, if you want to turn the United States into San Francisco, if you want to be stepping in human feces everywhere you walk, vote for Gruesome Newsom. If you want peace abroad and prosperity at home, just like we had in my first term, vote for me. I mean, we're witnessing astonishing stuff, gang. Trump is surging. Biden is imploding. And whether the courts gag him or release him, It doesn't matter. Trump's poll numbers only seem to be going up. And if the same historical pattern holds with the economy only getting worse, we ain't seen nothing yet. Butter the popcorn, gang. This is going to be epic. Over to you, gang. But first,
I'll be back.
That's right, gang. He is back. It's time to show our support and celebrate the great return by clicking on the link below and getting your very own Trumpinator 2024 bobblehead in preparation for Donald Trump's glorious reascendance to the United States presidency. This collectible bobblehead from Proud Patriots is made with the highest quality material and really is a must-have for any Trump fan who wants to send some energy towards what's shaping up to be the most glorious political comeback in history. Now, don't wait. There are just a limited number of these collectibles. You don't want to be caught paying way more later on eBay from someone who bought one now. Whatever you do, don't wait. Make Christmas shopping early. Click on that link below right now and show your support for Trump 2024. Today, I got mine. I always got them right by me. Right there. That's my little bobblehead. And like I said, I love the boxes. The boxes are even cooler. I like putting them right there on top of it as a beautiful display. It's great. Just put that right there or wherever, prominently in your home. It'll be the most awesome conversation piece imaginable. Let me put them right here. You hang out with me, old Trumpinator. All right, Josh, what do we got here? Let me start. We got a Rumble chat. Let me get, actually, no, I'll start with what you guys got here for me. That's Russ and Mary Comstock. Thank you, Russ and Mary. Given populism fueling unrest in the United States and abroad, but governments use outside threat to divert citizens' attention, that oppressor narrative is playing out. What cultural political dynamics are really dominating at home and abroad? So that's a very good question. That's very, very deep and nuanced. I would say it is ultimately it is a dialectic. It is a clash. That is the dominating dynamic. And it is a dialectic between globalism on the one hand, nationalism on the other. Right? The political establishment on one side, populism on the other, and secularization, progressive secularization on one side, and traditionalism on the other. And what we're seeing is it's a dialectic in that as one gets stronger, i.e. as globalism gets more globalist, as the establishment tries to become more technocratic and assert their power more and more, as secularism seeps in more and more into society, the blowback against it, from various reasons, blowback gets stronger and stronger. So, I mean, you even see some scholars using a term. I think it's a goofy term, but it's a term called glocalism. And glocalism is this clash. It's this intermixing of the oil and water of nationalism and globalism, of populism and elitism, of traditionalism and secularism. So that's why so much of our society just looks so weird. That's why we're talking about crazy and turbulent times. Is this dialectic whereas one gets stronger, the other gets stronger as a pushback, and then they inevitably clash. That dialectic is creating a silly term they use, but I think it's accurate. It's creating a dynamic known as glocalism, and that's this dialectic, this clash, this back and forth between nationalism and globalism and the elitism and populism and the like. So yeah, so they'll always, the stronger we get, the more they're going to push back. The more they push back, the stronger we get. Thank you, Russ and Mary. I will do the Rumble chat. I think that's it. I don't know if they have the Rumble chat up there. So Rumble chat, this is from Harry at New Mexico. Thank you, Harry, for the gift as well. Dr. Steve, this Sunday is the big Argentina election. That's right. Milei is up there as the polls are neck and neck, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for Milei, right? Thank you for everything that you do. Absolutely. Thank you for everything. Yeah, Javier Milei should do well. We were a bit disappointed in the last election, but he's really pushing back against, who is it? Their Secretary of the Treasury, if I recall, who's running, as they have 140% inflation. So, yeah, if the people of Argentina want a real change and they want to better their economic, financial conditions, they're certainly going to put Javier Milei into power. It's going to be astonishing, and he's going to Bukelize their society. That's what he's already talked about. He is channeling Nayib Bukele, who has a 90% approval rating in El Salvador. He's basically saved El Salvador's economy. He's saved their streets. Violent crime has plummeted by 98% ever since he introduced the super prison in El Salvador. So scholars are talking about Javier Milei basically running a campaign comparable to Nayib Bukele. I have talked to people from Latin America. They are huge fans of Bukele. Again, he has a 90% approval rating, and they are huge fans of Javier Milei. So they should do it. Now, again, what could happen is that he has a surge. It's huge, but it falls short because of corruption, falls short because too many people in Argentina are just too entrenched with the socialist brainwashing. It could happen. So we're going to have to wait till next year. But the wind is at his back. It's moving in that direction. He's one of the coolest candidates that Argentina has ever had. So it's good stuff. Maximilian, good to see you, my friend. In the context of worldviews and political theology, what are some ultimate authorities that people might want to follow? So I'm assuming you're talking about analytical authorities rather than institutional ones. I'm assuming, Maximilian. So what are some ultimate, the way you put that, though, you tend to think big. So ultimate authorities. Well, I mean, so I'll answer in both ways briefly. So the major institutions that structure society is in the Western traditions is the church, the state, and the family. Okay, not necessarily in that order per se. I'm just a church, state, family. So church is the primary means by which heaven and earth comes together and society is redeemed in and through the incarnation of Christ. The state enacts and protects that redemption by representing, as it were, the earthly human nature of Christ, as the church represents his divine heavenly nature. And then the family is it's the church and state in microcosm. It kind of actually is a bridge in many ways between church and state, in that it's the family where our children learn how to embrace moral obligations that we did not choose for ourselves. So that's very key. So what liberalism, the reason why the family dies under liberalism, and we've talked about this before, is liberalism says you have no moral obligations apart from that which you choose for yourself. Right. So this is the Meghan Markle approach to family. I don't need to be a part of this royal family because I didn't choose you. And I don't want to have these moral obligations because I didn't choose you. Harry, come along with me. And Harry says, okay, I guess so. I didn't choose this for myself either. This was chosen for me. And on liberalism's own grounds, that's not right. That's not good. Liberalism is all about the emancipation of the autonomous self apart from any moral obligations imposed upon them. And so the family, so it stands in stark contrast to the classical vision of the family, which sees the family as the what do you want to call it? The garden wherein one learns to embrace moral obligations that have been placed on oneself. This is where all the great classic literature, whether it's going from the Iliad to the Lord of the Rings, we did not choose this time. The time has chosen us, and now we're called to rise up to the occasion and to be faithful with this calling. We learn that when we learn to love and embrace people, places, institutions, right, regions and the like, traditions that we didn't choose, but that chose us. And we learn that in the family. In the terms of worldviews and political theology, you know what, Maximilian, ask me that Monday night in our live Q&A. And it's Tuesday night. Remember, we had to change it because I'm at a meeting on Monday. So Tuesday night, our live Q&A, and I'll see who I can find for you. But not too much comes to mind, ironically, in terms of the political theology that I really, really like. Mine is actually a hodgepodge of a lot of sort of minor scholars that I kind of create into a meta theory there. So ask me that again, and I will look for you. Maybe I'll throw out one name here, John Milbank. Although I have my issues with him, but John Milbank, the British scholar, is an expert in political theology, so he would be good. Do a little reading and research on him this week. You may already have encountered him as well, but very good on both worldview and political theology. Lord Niblick, good to see you, and thank you so much for your gifts. You're always so kind. Hey, brother, God willing, Trump will be our next president. Are we or Trump planning to have any common sense countermeasures ready for the demon crap WEF proxies that will terrorize and create chaos after he's elected? Good question. We are going to have to see on that one. Now, he's already talking about implementing Schedule F, right? That's more, let's like Order 66 of the Jedi. That's basically going to, well, some estimates are saying that he could fire as many as 40 to 60,000 deep state operatives overnight with Schedule F. So he's said he's going to implement that. He's already said this is going to be a presidency of retribution, where he's coming in to wreak vengeance on the deep state. So we'll see. Again, that's the dialect, like the first question we got. The more he pushes back, the more they're going to push back. But, hopefully, he has a little more power as president than they do. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. Lord Niblick, no question. But you're right. WEF is going to push back. Keep in mind, WEF has never been weaker. I mean, even the New York Times has admitted that. The world that the WEF depends on, a technocratic, unipolar world where a one-size-fits-all political and economic system becomes sort of it becomes the cardiovascular system wherein they can implement their devious schemes. That world's gone. We're in a multipolar world now where 85% of the world doesn't want anything to do with them. So they're limiting their influence primarily to the West, but even we're seeing Europe crack up with the rise of the so-called far-right parties everywhere. Even the latest being in Spain with the latest shenanigans from the socialist Sanchez and what he did to take over there, even though he got voted out. So yeah, we'll have to see. I just don't see them as having much of a world stage to operate on after, say, 2030. I just think they're just falling apart slowly. They still have a lot of power, no question. All the billionaires are there, but even Elon and others are just saying WEF is just satanic at this point. Thank you, Lord Niblick. Nick Johnson, thank you for the gift. Glad as I am to see wokeness become unpopular. I also don't want to be that guy who screams woke at anything vaguely diverse or progressive. Do you believe a middle ground is possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we are seeing, that's a great question, Nick. I think we are seeing something like that with the splitting apart of the left. So foundationally, wokeness splits the left and unites the right. Wokeness splits the left and unites the right. So you put forward any woke issue, and poll after poll after poll shows that about half the left supports it, half the left, right, like Bill Maher and Piers Morgan, are disgusted by it. They don't like it. They don't want anything to do with it. This is what, remember, Joe Rogan would call himself more or less a populist leftist. He's nauseated by wokeness. So Bill Burr, we can keep going on and on. These are just leftists who are absolutely horrified by the woke. So wokeness splits left, but at the same time, it unites the right. The right is in total 100% unanimity against anything woke. So that's why one of the key ways of winning elections is to push wokeness. It was genius for Ron DeSantis back in the 2022 gubernatorial election there. I mean, he just kept pushing woke, woke, woke. I'm fighting against wokeness. I'm fighting against this insanity with Disney and all this craziness in our schools. And look what happened. I mean, he won in a blowout because it splits the left and it unites the right. That's more people are going to come out to vote against wokeness than will vote for it. But what you're doing there is you bring up a very sophisticated point. Wait a minute now. If it's uniting the right, don't we then risk like beating up the whole of the left, even although half of the left is with us against wokeness? And that's where a healthy diversity comes in. And I think we've got it, or at least the makings of it. I think we've got it. We've got a healthy diversity there with guys like Dave Rubin and Douglas Murray and so forth, who are horrified by the LGBT movement, but who are also openly gay and like. So, I think we're all a big family, patriot family here, defending faith, family, and freedom. And we do believe in the very liberty and freedom that says, look, you get to live your life as you want, but just make sure you do not adopt this cultural Marxist binary of oppressor versus oppressed, and then all of a sudden recast our traditions and customs and culture as bigoted and racist and oppressive. Because in the end, you only end up eating yourself. You only end up destroying yourself, as we're seeing the Democratic Party right now with the Israeli Hamas sympathizing factions banging heads. So I think the line of demarcation is that we honor and revere our nation's cultures, customs, traditions, particularly the Judeo-Christian tradition of our nation, just Christian nation, if you want to put it that way. We all honor that as good and right. Nationalism is good and right. Borders are good and right. Economic nationalism, bringing manufacturing and industrial jobs back home, is good and right. Energy independence, dear heavens. Energy independence is good and right. Traditional calendar, traditional time, Christmas, not winter break, Easter, resurrection, not spring break, those are all good. We defend those. Those are right. And in that structure, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I've heard it put, it's almost like a theocratic libertarianism, right? Do whatever you want within those structures, as long as you're honoring the flag, honoring our traditions, honoring God, honoring those who honor, maybe is another way of putting it. As long as you honor those great traditions that maintain a society of faith, family, and freedom, enjoy your life. We're not going to bother you. I think that's basically the closest thing we can get to some kind of, heaven on earth that never happens until the true heaven comes on earth on that final day. Thanks, Nick. Max, what are the big questions that a worldview theology? Worldviews theology answers. Yeah, we've talked about that. I thought. So the big questions are they're generally 6. A lot will have 5, but I have 6. So who is God? All right, what is God? Every worldview has an ultimate authority. Everyone. Bill Maher has an ultimate. For Bill Maher, I would assume it's scientific rationalism. It's his own reason, right? It's known as the Hegelian hope. That's his God. Even Jordan Peterson has pointed out. Everyone has an ultimate value, ultimate authority that does not itself need to be defended. It is the basis for defense of everything else. As C.S. Lewis said, I believe in God the same way I believe in the sun, not because I see it fully, but by it I see everything else. So you're going to have a sacred that makes sense of as much of life as possible. So what is this eternal light that by which we see light, that shines forth all things? That's the first thing. Second thing, then, what is the nature of the cosmos, the nature of the created world? Do angels exist? Do parallel universes exist? What's going to happen to our cosmos? Why is it here? How should we live within our ecology and all that sort of stuff? So there's going to be theological questions, and then metaphysical as well as cosmological questions that need to be answered. Why is it, the Carl Sagan-like questions that need to be answered. And then the big one, what does it mean to be human? What is our place in this world? So it's known as anthropology. So you've got a theological question, metaphysical questions, and you have anthropological questions. What does it mean to be human? We run around saying Black Lives Matter, but how do we say that if we don't even know why life matters? Why does life matter first? Start there. Why does life matter? And then we can get into, I'm not even going to say all lives matter. I don't know that. Maybe that's not true, but that's where your anthropology kicks in. And then you have sort of three categories that are like true, the good, and the beautiful. The true, the good, and the beautiful. So the true is, how do we know? How do we come to know? So much of our disagreement with leftists is on the base of knowledge. How do we even understand what reality is? So when you don't know what a woman is, you see, that's a question of epistemology, a question of how do we even know? And the classical worldviews, traditionalist worldviews, have a very deep, rich conception of knowledge that goes way beyond scientific rationalism. Scientia, as it used to be known, is simply part of an overall what's called theoria, which is a much more theological vision of knowledge that encompasses things like the true, the good, and the beautiful, and theology, and what it means to be human, and the like. So, so you've got theology, you've got metaphysics, you got anthropology, then you have epistemology, that's your true. Then you have ethics, that's your good. How should we live? If now we know why we're here, how then should we behave? We're seeing this right now play out with Israel and the Palestinians, in terms of proportionate response and who's in the right. They're both trying to argue who's got the moral high ground there. So that's ethics. How do we even arrive at what's good? And then finally, I put in the sixth one, and then that's the beautiful. And what is the nature of beauty, and what's the role of beauty in the shaping of our humanity? And then that translates into the creation of a culture's literature, art, architecture, music, poetry, calendar, fashion, festival, and the like. So those are the six big categories that a worldview's theology answers. Oh, thank you, Madone. 1971. Thank you very much. 1971 for your gift. Thank you. Oh, and Madone, thank you again for Dr. C. Can you address at some point the articles from The Hill and CNBC with regards to polls in battleground states that Nikki Haley is beating Biden in a bigger margin than Trump? That's a great question. Yes, I can. And I will defer you to the work of Rich Barris over at the People's Pundit. He's done some actual analysis of those polls. Those are not real polls. That's his way of putting it. And I agree with him 1,000%. Those polls are artificial in the sense that nobody knows who Nikki Haley is. When you ask those same people, who is Nikki Haley and what does she believe, you're not going to get an answer. They don't know. They just know they see her face all the time and blah, blah. They don't know any of her positions. They don't know she was South Carolina governor. They don't necessarily know she was an ambassador. She is a familiar face and they don't know why. So when they say, hey, would you vote for a president? Sure, absolutely. Celebrity, sure, no problem. But the moment you drill down on what she actually believes, the polls deflate. They go into a free fall. The moment you realize she really is Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels, nobody wants anything to do with her. She would lose. I mean, Biden would beat her by 400 electoral votes. She would be crushed. I don't even think she would get Texas. She's that bad. So right now, it's purely celebrity polling. The advantage Trump has is every single person knows Trump and knows him inside and out, back and forth. They had 4 years of him. He's literally the most famous person on the planet. People know why. They know exactly what he stands for. So his polling is absolutely solid. Whereas Nikki Haley's polling is just it's just celebrity pipe dream polling. It has no chance of sustaining itself any more than Ron DeSantis' polling sustained it. Remember, Ron came onto the scene polling pretty high. There were even a couple of polls that showed him and Trump either neck and neck. A couple of polls that showed him beating Trump. This is early on in the spring, and that's collapsed. This is more we learn about him falls apart. Same thing with Nikki Haley. So there you go. Brooks Kelly, can I get you to call her Nikki Flaley? Nikki Flaley, the one who wants us to use our real names on the internet, but doesn't even use her own name. She uses a pseudonym, as Tucker pointed out the Candace Owens interview the other day. Yeah, she's just ridiculous. She is repulsive. She's not talking to you. She's not talking to me. She's talking to her donors. She's made she left government broke. I mean, Candace Owens was talking about this the other day. She left government broke. She left her ambassadorship broke She is now a millionaire. How did that happen? She sits on the board of defense contractors and now touts defense as a way of being able to justify the $100,000 check she gets written. It's just ridiculous. It's disgusting. She is what is everything that is wrong with Washington. Thanks, Brooks. Maximilian, what is sovereignty? Where does it really come from and how? How is it exercised? Oh my, Maximilian, you're going to turn this into a 5-hour broadcast. So as I understand, sovereignty simply is self-contained power. It's power that has clear designated boundaries, and within those boundaries, there is no counter power to the hegemon, the main power that's inside of there. So there's no alternative to the full power. So if you have sovereignty over your body, no one else has right within the boundaries of your body to impose their opinion over and against your opinion or your decision. So this is like what's behind the whole, this is what was behind Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade answered definitively in their own horrible way, and it rightly got overturned, regardless of what he even thought of abortion. There were plenty of pro-choice legal scholars that thought it was terrible law, but they basically made the argument that, well, the fundamental question was, once a woman has made a decision on her pregnancy, does the state have the right to step in and tell her differently? And the Supreme Court said no, because a woman has sovereignty over her body. Now, when it comes to, ironically, prostitution, for some reason, the state has the right to come in and say, no, we're going to intervene there. So that's some of the inconsistencies of Roe v. Wade, but and why it got overturned. Where does it come from? Sovereignty, from a theological perspective, sovereignty comes from God. So God is the ultimate sovereign, right? And then any authority or power that we have is derived from the author of authority. It's derived from the author of authority, which is God himself. We can't just make up authority, because if, someone turns and says, I have authority, sovereignty over my body, I could just turn around and say, no, you don't. It's just right. It's just as arbitrary. But if there is an objective moral order that we have to live by, lest we collapse, if pride really does go before the fall, just the way, night precedes day, if we operate by moral laws as well as natural laws, then we're going to have to respect the rules of sovereignty, the sovereignty over our sovereignty, as it would say, because our sovereignty is derivative, where God's is absolute. And then how is it exercised? I just, again, very very quickly, because it's exercised in the Christian tradition in service. It's exercised in terms of service. There's some interesting Bushido, Zen, Shinto like resonances with that as well, from my limited Japanese experience. But the idea of humility and service, ironically, is the way we exercise our sovereignty. So a true leader is a servant. A true leader washes feet. Doesn't have his feet washed, he washes feet. So a true leader is always there to serve the other. And then the competition is who can serve the other more. So in a sense, that's what makes, I think, a healthy Christian capitalism beautiful, because Christian capitalism is all about gifting. Starts with gift, starts with investment, starts with service, and then the profit is the service others give to us in appreciation of our service. So that's obviously outside of crony capitalism and the like, which is just a secular version. So there you go, Maximilian. You got me going today, Max. Servant of God, good to see you, my friend. What's this proof they steal elections in key states? What? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Well, not that shocked. Also, did you hear the dollar lost value twice this month so far? I did hear of something akin to that, and I went in. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Really? $3 trillion in deficit spending, and we're losing value? What? unparalleled inflation. We're losing value. I don't believe it. Yeah, I'm with you. So, SOG, I'm with you. Yeah. So, right. The Georgia cases could be really neat. So that's January 9th, I believe, is the trial date set for that hearing. So it'd be really, really cool to see how that plays itself out. That judge does look like, I mean, she's trying to cover her tracks a little bit, saying, oh, we don't have any proof from 2020 that affected anything, blah, blah, blah. Because there was a breach in the security of one of the machines, but it was in Coffee County, which voted 70% Republican. So saying, it didn't matter, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that there is enough evidence that it can be compromised is enough for her to, as she has the honesty to say, well, yes, that would be a violation of voting rights if that were the case. And then ironically, this is a case that was brought by Democrats. I don't know if you caught my video yesterday. I get more of a deep dive in it in yesterday's video. But this is ironic. This is a case that came in 2017 after Trump won Georgia. And they wanted to, they questioned whether or not that was a legitimate win based on the possible compromising the security of these electronic voting machines. It's hilarious. I mean, just the irony of this is just, you could cut it with a knife. Thank you, SG. MD, can't help but notice the race discriminating justice system that seems to only leaving white Americans recourse to be the KKK white nationalism seems to swamp trying hard to build atmosphere for it. Yeah. So what we're facing right now, we're facing, Carol Swain writes about it in her book, her 2002 book, The New White Nationalism. What we're facing today is the asymmetrical application of civil rights. So civil rights now is rooted in multiculturalism. And multiculturalism basically says that if you're an ethnic, religious, racial minority, you get to be ethnocentric. You get to celebrate your religion publicly. You get to celebrate your race publicly. But if you are the majority, and again, this only applies to Western nations, therefore it only applies generally to whites. If you are the majority, ethnic, religious, racial majority, then you have to be a radical individualist. You're not allowed to celebrate your identity, your communal, your religious, your racial, ethnic identity. That's the rules of a multicultural society. If you're a minority, you get your own months, you get your own weeks, you get your own special celebrations, you get your own shout outs, you get your own national anthem, all that sort of stuff. But if you're the majority, nope, you have to be a radical individualist. You cannot celebrate your ethnicity and the like. And so what Carol Swain, who is herself Black, big Trump supporter, she's awesome. We've had her on the show several times. One of my favorite scholars. She was a tenured scholar at Princeton and Vanderbilt. She's now a YouTube star. She's doing great. Just like sort of Jordan Peterson breakout from the university. But she pointed out that is only, and just exactly what you said, MD, that multicultural asymmetrical application of civil rights is only fostering more white nationalism. That's what it's doing. Because and the reason is not because of anything like social Darwinism or biological Darwinism or, any kind of, ethno superiority or anything like that. It's because of the unfair application of civil rights. If Blacks get to vote their political interests, if Latinos get to vote their political interests, if Asians get to vote their political interests, why can't whites vote theirs? That's the sentiment that increasingly comes to the surface. So you're what you just described, actually, what your wonderful comment there, and what in 20, 30 words or less was the subject. I believe Carol Swain's thesis is about 500 pages. And she argues exactly what you just said, gives you all the scholarship and the like. She's only been proven right in the intervening 20 years. So great minds think alike, MD. Mitchell, good to see you, my friend. Did you hear about the kill switch that will be implemented in cars to the infrastructure bill? Do you think this could be challenged in court? Of course, absolutely. I don't see it happening. I honestly don't. I at the very least, red states are going to ban it. They're going to have to. They're going to have no choice because their constituents want it. Can you see that implemented in Texas? I mean, so at this point, I just see it as again, it's just another WEF hangover that has yet to read the room of the age we're moving into, where more and more populists are saying thanks, but no thanks. Brooks, good to see you, my friend. Is Biden the patron saint of zombies? Yeah. You have to wonder. I mean, you have to wonder. Double chin zombies, right? I guess technically that's not a double chin. I don't. Thanks, Brooks. That's hilarious. Chris, thank you, sir, for the gift. We need a tidal wave across the states to change the voting system. What do you think it will finally take? And when we see you play the guitar? I just got asked that when I was down in Texas. When are we seeing you break out the guitar a little more, do some guitar reaction videos? Well, I'll go in reverse. Chris, honestly, every time I start playing, I sit down, I get interrupted with life. It's running a media company is a lot of work, and putting on 4 videos a day, a lot of work. And I know I can hear you guys, but I just get interrupted, and then it goes back into the case, and I don't touch it for it could be months on end. So I just have to. I was getting up to about a few weeks ago, I was starting to really do a lot of playing, and I thought, all right, maybe I'll put a video together for everybody, and I get interrupted, and then I just can't. I'm too much of a perfectionist to just do it. It's just ingrained in my DNA from all the years of study. I've got to get it to the point where I feel good about it. If I feel good about it, I'll break it out for you guys. But keep on my back on that. Definitely, I should do it. Tidal wave across. What do you think it will finally take? Yeah, it's just so. We've talked before about sort of critical mass and turning point theory, where you just end up seeing you saw it building, but then all of a sudden the dam breaks and it all just explodes. We saw it with Viktor Orban. We saw it with the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, that had been they had been in the wings, waiting in the wings for a while in India. And then all of a sudden, I forget what 2014, I think the year was, they had this massive blowout election, won the biggest landslide victory of any Democratic Party in history. So yeah, not turning point theory, tipping point theory basically argues that you need about 30%. There's studies differ, but you need about 25 to 30% of the population all in on something. And that's enough to convince another, say, 21, 22, 23%. And then once they're convinced and they all kind of move in that direction, then that convinces another, say, 10% of the population. Then boom, before you know it, 65% of the population is all in. So it looks like we're about there. It looks like we've got about 30% of the population that is total MAGA. That's all in. I mean, one of the latest studies came out that shocked people. I mean, there were several articles written in response to it, very panicked articles, showed that 1 in 3 people see themselves as Christian nationalists. They're all in with Christian nationalism. So it looks like we're there, and we're just going to have to keep being fervent, getting out there, getting the vote out, convincing people why another 4 years of Biden would be a disaster, both in terms of foreign wars and domestic depression, and how look, you may not like the guy, but let's face it, those 4 years of Trump were pretty awesome, pretty banging, right? Make sure you've got his record straight, right? We had record levels of employment, lowest levels of unemployment among blacks that we've ever had, one of the lowest levels of manufacturing unemployment that we've ever had. We had energy independence. We were #1 energy exporter in the world. We were moving to record surpluses. We had the border secured, more secure than it had been in decades. And you had mean tweets. Okay. Right. Obviously, the establishment doesn't like him, but the establishment seems to love open borders. They seem to love inflation. They seem to love unemployment. They seem to love deficit spending, and they seem to love wars. And I've had it with it. I don't want it anymore. I don't care if he gives mean tweets. I just want somebody who's going to bring some sanity to office again. I think we talk that way. This 2024 may be it, maybe the tipping point where we see a 55, 60% swing move to Trump. Just Jen reacts. How can we make paper ballots the only way we vote again? Well, we'll see. So, I mean, already Marjorie Taylor Greene commented on this judge who is going to hold the January 9th hearing on the electronic machines. She said this is why we need paper ballots. It's good. In the end, it is every state is going to you're going to have a movement in every state to bring back paper ballots, to bring back accountable ballots with chain of custody protocol, very clear, and that can that anybody should be able to have the right to audit, so that we have free, fair, and open elections. So we're just going to have it's going to have to be done at the state level. As I understand, because every state does elections differently, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of, but I'm also not a fan of the current clowns in DC dictating to us a one-size-fits-all voting system right now. So we're just again, we're in crazy and turbulent times. That's it. Thanks, Just Jen. Horizons Bear, good to see you, my friend. The only way we win in 2024 is when Ron resigns. Yeah, Romney McDaniel. Again, I did a video on that this week. Trump, it's being widely reported Trump's advisors are telling him once he gets the nomination, canner, get rid of her, and then put Vivek or someone else who actually understands how to win elections, understands big tech and how to use big tech, understands voter turnout, like Scott Pressler, who I've had on the show. Put somebody else in, because she's a disaster. She's meant to be. I'm convinced she's controlled opposition. I'm convinced she's there to make sure to thwart MAGA gains. I don't think she wants to thwart Trump per se, but she definitely wants to thwart people like Carrie Lake and Blake Masters. They definitely want to thwart JD Masters. They certainly thwarted Doug Mastriano. They want to thwart as much MAGA force, Christian nationalist forces as possible. And she's there to do that. So, and we saw it happen just a couple of weeks back. I agree with you, Horizons Bear. I still think Trump could win, by the way. That I do think we win 2024 because I think Trump is the biggest vote turnout machine on the planet. No one comes out and brings out the vote like Trump. Again, even with all of the shenanigans we saw in 2020, Biden still won by only 40,000 votes. He literally won by the population of a single county. That's how close Trump came, playing fair and honest, right? Because he just brings out the vote like now. They're not going to be able to do that again. All the assessments I'm reading now is 2020 is gone. They had their chance. They did it. They took advantage of it. 2024 is not going to be the mail-in ballots are not going to be the same. Wisconsin's changed. Georgia's changed. Arizona's changed. They're not going to be able to do it. So they are scared to death. But 2026, you bet. Republicans are never gonna. It's not gonna happen as long as and the down the ballot. We'll see. Doesn't necessarily translate, does it? All right. Thank you, Horizon Bear. Brooks Kelly, can I get you to call Ronna McSpaniel? I love it, McSpaniel. All right, Ronna McSpaniel. I always liked Romney McDaniel. Right? He's her niece, if I recall. So Brooks, you're hilarious. Raven Riding's Nest. Good to see you, my friend. Ron DeSantis need to concentrate here in Florida. Yes, that's right. You're a Floridian. Makes me nervous for Florida for the next election for governor, as it should. Again, this is so stupid. It's so idiotic. If the Democrats play their cards right, you may get a Democrat. And now, again, I think you'll still have your super majority in the legislature, so that they'll be cut down at the knees. They won't be able to do too much, like Katie Hobbs in Arizona. She's not. I mean, with her, she can inflict a lot of damage in terms of the border, but other than that, there's not a lot that she can do. because the Arizona Republican Party kind of pushes back against her. They have to. And that's the good news. So even if you do get somebody in 2026, a Democrat, I don't think they're going to be able to do so much. You guys, seriously, in Florida, you have so rocked it. You have written the textbook on how to turn a purple state red. You guys, you in Ohio, you guys have just utterly rocked it. So I hear it. I'm frustration duly noted. But because you are so awesome and so strong, Raven, I'm not worried. In the end, you may have a hiccup here or there with governors, but I think your state is so solid red right now. You're just rocked it. So, but that's not to remove responsibility for DeSantis taking his eye off the ball, which he did, because 2028 was his guaranteed. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see if he can recover. Thank you, Raven. Anthony McNabb, thank you, sir. Is there any feasible way to turn around the polls in Washington state to turn the state red? Semi Bird would make a great governor. Yeah. So you're facing the same, as I understand, Washington, you're facing the same problems, Oregon. And that is basically 2 or 3 of your counties are painting the entire state blue. So I just know Oregon's figures off the top of my head. But when I studied Oregon because of the Greater Idaho movement, I was comparing it with Washington as well. But if Oregon got rid of one county, Multnomah County, where Portland is, the Republican would win every election by at least 10 points. That's what they estimate. And I think Washington is very much the same thing. So so what you can do is you can shave off the margins of the win. You can effectively shave off the margins of win by doing 2 things. You've got to get the whole of the rural vote out in your eastern counties. You've got to get the whole of the rural vote out in your eastern counties. Okay. The rural vote is notoriously bad voter turnout. This is the problem that Democrats faced in midterm elections when rural voters were traditionally Democrat voters, because the Democrat Party was traditionally the party of the farmer. It was the rural party. It was the Republican Party. It was the party of the bankers and the cities and the wealthy and the affluent. So rural voters tended to be Democrats. This is certainly the case with the New Deal and FDR. They tended to be Democrats, but they have a horrible turnout problem. So when they were a Democrat constituency, Republicans would just blow them away in midterms like 1994, 2010, or 2014, just blow them away. Democrats just couldn't compete if there wasn't a presidential candidate on the top of the ticket that would garner publicity for the election and then bring out more of the rural vote than normal. Now the rural vote is our vote, right? MAGA country is rural America. It's America, faith, family, and freedom, who lived out their lives and don't necessarily follow politics and don't even know there's an election there. So you've got to maximize that vote. So Scott Presler's doing some amazing stuff with that, going door to door. And then we have the SoCal ballot harvesting strategy that goes to evangelical churches and so evangelicals vote 80% Republican, but they're only having about 50 or 60% turnout. So if you go to the churches and harvest the ballots there, you're going to get 100% turnout of a constituent that votes 80% Republican. So that's one way of maximizing your margins. The second way is to figure out, and there are some really interesting articles about this. There was one in the Philadelphia Inquirer just last week, because we had a primary election here in Philly. Republicans are going to have to figure out how to win urban votes. Now, Trump has already figured that out, where he's getting 20%, 22% the black vote. He's getting, in some polls, the majority of the male non-white vote. So black, Latino, Asian. He's figured it out inadvertently by just being the GOAT, just being like the gangsta. He's just, that mugshot made him relatable in a cultural sphere that has no way of relating to a New York billionaire, but it can relate to somebody who was unfairly arrested and got a mugshot taken. So suddenly now he's in their cultural horizon. They see him as one of them, their champion. Your typical pipsqueak, Lindsey Graham Republican is odious to the cosmopolitan urban voter. Odious. So we're going to have, it's not so much to me the suburban woman. It's being able to get 20, 30% of the urban vote. If we can do that and then bring out the rural vote, we'll win Washington, we'll win Oregon. But that's the question, is how do you do that? And certainly not with Ronna McDaniel's just sleeping. She could care less on how to do that. So there you go, Anthony. We'll have to see. Jonathan Collins, I think we have just a couple more. Biden is becoming totally unviable, as are the court cases against Trump. Do you think they would do the truly unthinkable and remove Trump? That's what Tucker wonders. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Tucker asked that, what was like the very first question he asked Trump on that utterly epic interview that I think would make one of the most epic tickets imaginable. A Trump Tucker ticket would be, TNT 24 would be unbelievable. I hope not. That's all I can say. I certainly can't say no, it won't happen. I certainly can't say that. I don't see how anyone could say that, but I certainly hope not. And that's why we have to cover him in our prayers. We have to cover him in our prayers. Yep, go ahead. Get Stephen Collins. Hi, Stephen. Their next step in stopping Trump is controlling the internet via the latest FCC policy. Yeah, again, but I think it'll go down. I think the Supreme Court will turn it upside down. I don't think we have to. But again, it's what kind of mess do they make in the meantime? But yeah, I mean, even Nikki Haley's talking about. I mean, they're the established. I mean, they're absolute. I mean, they're just all they do is escalate. All they do is want more control. You're most free when we're most in control. That's their motto. You're most free when we are most in control. It's just they don't stop. It's insane. It's both parties. That's what drives us all crazy. Good point, Stephen. Ken, if Dems replace Biden in 24, how do they do it? It's too late for the primaries, past deadline, convention floor fight. If so, effects on public opinion. Well, this is kind of what happened with Vietnam. So they're experiencing a comparable split with the Israeli-Hamas conflict in the way that they experienced in Vietnam, and with the establishment Democrats being all totally pro-war. It forced Johnson out. And then they had the 68, primary fight, and it was a disaster. So something comparable could happen there here as well. They actually changed the rules of their primaries as a result of that. It was such a disaster. It didn't help them in 72 either with McGovern. We have to keep that in mind. Democrats have faced cataclysmic defeats and came back. Right. So if the social trajectory is moving in a direction, you can face a lot of electoral defeats like the Republicans have been facing of late and still be destined to control. I mean, and victory. There's no way around that. And that's where I think we are right now with the rise of populism and nationalism and traditionalism and so forth. So I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll have to see how it plays out. I just have a feeling it's going to be messy because I just think with the current state of the Democratic Party in turmoil with the Israeli Palestinian situation, I just think there are going to be factions in there who they're not going to go along with the program. They're not going to play nice and they're going to push back. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Anthony, good to see you, my friend. It's time the Republicans got active and turn one of the West Coast states red. Save the West and save America. I love it. Nevada is primed to turn red. It got a mixed showing last year with the governor winning and the senator losing. it got its mixed result with Laxaltanol. It is ready to go. It's ready to fall. The polls there show Trump absolutely looks like he's going to take Nevada. And that's it. I mean, if he takes Nevada, this election is over. If he takes Nevada and Arizona, this election is over. Forget New Mexico at this point. Again, unless you can implement that rural strategy of getting out the vote, most likely through ballot harvesting in evangelical churches, and then being able to peel off enough of the urban vote, 20, 25, 30%, so as to interrupt their margins. If you interrupt their margins, we can do it. But and so it'll be interesting to see with Oregon and Washington as well. But yeah, I mean, if you count Idaho, Wyoming, Utah as part of that Western wave, I don't see any reason why we're not going to see Nevada and fall as well, especially with the very high Mormon population there. That tends to vote 90% Republican. Well, Lalos, good to see you, my friend. Never forget Netanyahu said, America's a golden calf, and we will suck it dry, chop it up, and sell it piece by piece until there's nothing left. But world's biggest welfare state we will control. Yeah, well, I mean, Netanyahu does not have necessarily a lot of friends here. It's mixed. It's definitely mixed. And Netanyahu, of course, is always, I don't know if he actually said that. I'm not going to doubt you. And he does have a propensity towards hyperbole, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is part of the blowback against full blanket green light support of Israel. We have to be very careful of that because, as Doug McGregor said on our program, regardless of, I mean, we all agree October 7th was ISIS-like in its horror. Douglas Murray, I think, has done a fantastic job of being able to convey, as somebody who saw the films firsthand and is on the ground there. I think he's very eloquently expressed how horrific October 7th was to the Israelites as committed by Hamas. That said, the geopolitical realities of the Middle East are such that we cannot give Israel a green light to do whatever they want under our guise, under our protection, under our protecting, battleships. So as they do whatever they want under the cloak of our protection, then Netanyahu can go nuts. And then, Hezbollah, Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, they're not going to just sit idly by. So we're in a different world now. We're not in a unipolar world. We don't get to do whatever we want. And we have to get the best outcome possible given the geopolitical circumstances on the one hand, and the horror of what we saw on October the 7th on the other. Those are going to have to get balanced out. Next, another YouTube channel. Good to see you. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Love your kind. I love you too, my friend. Thank you. Segue Brasil, super sticker. Muito obrigado. Evan Strand, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your gift. SOG, you're back, you ornery fellow, you. I've heard that silver is held around $25 to $27 because if it in gold jumps, it would cause real estate and bonds to be hit to the point banks that hold loans starts to die off fully. Your thought? It's a good question. I don't know the calculus. So you're saying it's being artificially held down to 25 to 27 because if it goes too much, it can hurt real estate. I don't. I can see it hurting bonds. I mean, if you're getting a better return, certainly on gold and silver. I mean, people are going to pull their money out of there. So I don't know. I don't know enough to. I mean, there's no question they're engaging in all kinds of shenanigans. There's no question about that. I mean, the Fed has gone just like NATO. They've gone from being a purely defensive mechanism to now an offensive engineering mechanism, and it's just it's a disaster. You do not want centralized engineers over our economy. That's for sure. Bobby, good to see you. Just Jen in here chatting. Now it's a super Turley event. Well, that's very sick. Just Jen. All right. Well, so Just Jen is a Super Bowl maker. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Just Jen. Thank you, Bobby Walter. Thank you, guys. You're the best. Anthony, you're back. Good to see you, man. If half the left are with us with the avoidance woke rhetoric, can we bring them in the right as a whole and completely change our society? That's the theory. That's the theory. So the theory is that what's happening, so this is coming from the likes of Matthew Goodwin, Eric Kaufman, and other scholars. They tend to be Brits. What's happening is there is a realignment where disaffected liberals believe, and I actually had a disaffected liberal tell me this yesterday, that the conservatives are our only hope. The left has gone so crazy. We can't. I'm not a conservative. I'm much more center left, but I have the eyes to see that my fellow leftists have gone nuts, and conservatives are our only hope. I've heard that directly from a major disaffected liberal. So that's the theory. Now, and so that was the theory that DeSantis was better than Trump because the one thing, the argument goes, that's keeping disaffected liberals from fully embracing the new right is Trump derangement syndrome, like we see with Bill Maher. Bill Maher can't escape his own psychologizing, his own radical psychologizing of Trump. So Bill Maher refuses to embrace Trump. Piers Morgan refuses to embrace Trump. Well, Piers is over across the seas, but they refuse to embrace Trump because they've psychologized him. They think he's a psychopath, right? Or a sociopath or whatever. Now, it doesn't seem to help matters that Jordan Peterson, an actual trained psychologist, disagrees. Jordan Peterson actually finds Trump to be a very stable and very very admirable person in terms of what he's been able to achieve. He's Elon Musk-ish in many respects. The ability of Trump to be able to accomplish what he has accomplished goes far beyond any simpleton, ignorant, fanatical diagnosis, psychologized diagnosis that a bunch of lay people like Bill Maher want to give. So the theory was that if you put a DeSantis there, you can bypass that one barrier to this new coalition. Obviously you could see that just didn't work out. It didn't play itself out. Trump is more popular today than he has ever been. And I have to assume that is, and DeSantis is less popular today than he's ever been. So I'm going to have to assume that most people don't engage in foolish, ignorant, radical psychologizing as Bill Maher does to Donald Trump. So I think we are seeing a very real possibility of a full right, center left coalition emerging that will overwhelm the Democrats in 2024. Right now, as we speak, Trump would win with about 300 electoral votes. I think they have him at 295, 296 right now. And we're talking polls across the board, right? And Democrats know it. They're openly saying it. We're not going to win this. This is crazy. We don't know what to do. Let's find another indictment. Maybe that'll work. So great point, Anthony. Prophet, what's the difference between libertarian and Republican? Well, that's a little bit on the hard side. Because Republican is amorphous. So a libertarian, and again, even libertarians, you have quite the diverse array. You have the spectrum of libertarians. I would say the best way of thinking of a libertarian is one who wants to maximize individual freedom by minimizing the role of government in every sphere of life. Maximizing individual freedom by minimizing the role of government in every sphere of life. And then you have like the Hans Hermann Hoppe sort of anarcho-capitalist form of libertarianism that wants to do away with government altogether, and that he sees the state as the interruption of private property rights in the natural order, because the state, by definition, imposes public property rights, whereas public property rights are an artificial category that's created by people in power to create them, whereas private property rights are inherent part of me actually having my own body, my own personhood that I privately own, and then private property is simply an extension of that natural order of things. So libertarians could, and then you have soft libertarians who they'll say they're libertarian on moral issues. They don't want government getting involved in your bedroom and all that sort of stuff, but they're going to be pretty big government when it comes to defense or even government intervention in the economy and the like. But the key is, I think the best way of looking at it, the key is libertarianism is an ideology when all is said and done. And ideologies come from 19th century French word idéologue, which refers to a rational philosophical system that takes the place of religion. It's a rational philosophical system that takes the place of religion. Now, I'm not saying that if you're a libertarian, then by definition, you're trying to find something that's replacing your religion. I know plenty of Christians who are libertarians. No problem. No, but ideology and libertarianism tends to have a hold on a person's understanding of events and interpretation of the world in a way that's as unyielding as religion and religious sentiments. What you're seeing happening today in the Republican Party is the rise not so much of an ideology, but an identity. And the identity is one of nationalism. Now, you could say nationalism is a kind of ideology. Yes, it can be. It can be. But what they want, what's I think is characteristic of more and more people who see themselves as Republicans, is a kind of nationalization. There's a sense that we don't want globalism anymore. We don't want a one-size-fits-all political system. We want to bring political decision-making back to the local. So it's very much of a populist sentiment that wants to rescue our nation from globalist structures like the WEF and the UN and the like, and then reassert political control, but at the local level, so people feel like their values, interests, and concerns are dominant in their own politics. So it's a very, very practical movement. It's not so much ideological. So this is where Ben Shapiro just bangs up against Trumpism all the time, because he's got, in my view, he's got such an ideologically rigid understanding of the world that he can't see what's actually happening. And what's happening is the world's moving away from a one-size-fits-all ideology to identity. Who am I? Who are we? What does it mean to be Texan? What does it mean to be a New Yorker? What does it mean to be somebody in, St. George, Utah? What does it mean to be a Floridian? What does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to live in this small town here? Right? What does it mean to be me in this faith, family, and freedom environment I find myself? That's the world of identity that's rising up on the right, and the Republican Party is becoming more and more defined by it. And that's why I think ideological neocons like Ronna McDaniel or Lindsey Graham and so forth, they just occupy such a different cultural space than the rank and file grassroots Republican voter. And I would put, not all, but I would put some libertarians in that group. They just have an ideology that doesn't recognize that the age of ideology is over. We're now in the age of identity. Bobby Walter, forget to read. You get salty. You're being salty there, my friend. Salty cracker. MD, good to see you again. I'm thinking a racist judiciary against white people is breeding grounds for white nationalism. Seems to be a play by the swamp to nurture such a deed. It could be. It could be. I mean, certainly like a J6 situation, right? Where you bust in, fake FBI J6 protesters disguised as yeah, it could be, absolutely. But again, it's something. It's a genie that can come out of the bottle, right? It's the cat that comes out of the bag, the horse that comes out of the barn. They're presupposing it control it, and they have to be. That's Carol Swain's thesis: is you won't be able to control it. Maximilian, thou art welcome. Bunks with baguette. Sneed. You're above me on that one, Max. Love you. Marilyn Degati, good to see you, my friend. Do you think the New York redistricting ruling can be challenged at SCOTUS? Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are getting challenged. New York has made it Virginia has made it very, very difficult for Republicans to succeed, but yet they still are. That's the amazing thing. They're still making extraordinary gains despite the fact that these Democrats are playing all kinds of shenanigans. So we'll see. But most of these redistricting plans are getting challenged through the appellate process. Operator, America loves you, Steve. Thank you for all your hard work. Operator, thank you, and I love you. I do. I love you. You guys. Whenever I just came back from Waco, Texas, and just the passion, the love, the fellowship that we have. I stayed up way to the evening with a bunch of guys. My Turley talkers were just chatting in the lounge, having drinks, enjoying each other's company. Whenever I meet you guys, I feel like I've known you forever. That's just the way I feel. So I love you. Right back at you. MDE, sorry, Doc, asked my question twice. Thought my first question got low. No problem. No problem. I thought it was a variation on it. So, yeah, no problem. We got it. Charles, good to see you, my friend. Please remember the RNC chair, Ronna Romney McDaniel. I capitalize her maiden name exactly and emphasize she is Romney and Mitten's niece. She claims to not fully agree with her uncle, but she needs to go. I couldn't agree with you more, Charles. And I think more and more people are. I mean, the very fact that at a single-digit midget, albeit a single-digit midget debate, that Vivek knew, he read the room well. He knew that every Republican voter out there wanted her called out. The fact that he called her out like that shows you where the sentiments are. So yes, hopefully once Trump gets the nomination, he will quickly replace her as the head of the party. Bobby, Biden's in the chat. Okay, Phil Hiller. Oh no, Biden's in the chat. Maybe he'll learn some. Well, I don't expect him to be staying awake much longer. SOG, the bit about silver is with the dollar not being backed by petro anymore. Interesting. Yeah, due to those nations joining BRICS and trading oil plus a new gold-backed currency. Yep, with BRICS as well, right? Is part of how silver and gold could jump. Yeah. All right. No, I see that. Definitely. I mean, the dollar is going to radically change. We have to be ready for that. How it changes has yet to play out. What I like about your analysis is you're trying to be a couple of steps ahead of how the dollar is going to change now that a commodity-based global economy is rising as opposed to our currency base. So absolutely, with oil and gold, with real estate being the basis of their currency and their currencies and their trade, that is going to place a solely cash-based, currency-based economy that we've been pushing for the last few decades. So it's going to change. So the dollar is going to change. There's no way around it. Question is how. So we'll see. Now, keep in mind the little, I don't know, what do you want to call it? The ace in the deck here is that the dollar is still overwhelmingly the reserve currency for various nations, even BRICS nations. The dollar is still the default currency for those who for their savings, privately held. So it's made its way so much into the DNA of the global economy. It's going to take a while to see a huge change or shift in the way the dollar is practiced, shall we say, in the global economy. But there's no question we're seeing the beginning of it. SOG, and remember, a ton of bribes to keep secrets are in U.S. dollars currently. Absolutely. I love that, SOG. I love that. Well said. Well said. Well said. Secret. In other words, do secrets come out once the dollar tags? Richard Barris would be perfect to replace Ronnie McDaniel, MDE. I couldn't agree more. I'd love to see Rich Barris in there. I couldn't agree more. I don't know if he'll want it. Boy, he'll be on the limelight a lot, but he'd be great. Rich is amazing. It's just so good. Or at the very least, the top advisor to the head of the RNC. Final bit, SOG again. The stock market will most likely crater, dump it all when silver jumps. All right, we'll keep an eye on it. SOG, that's a good. Again, I love the way you're playing it out. Awesome. Tyron Draken, what do you think our ancestors think of what's going on today? There's a neat thought experiment on that. If you take a Democrat, your typical Democrat in 1960, put him in a time capsule, have him time travel to today, he would be a typical Republican. Right. Take your typical Democrat today, put them in a time capsule, and have them go back to 1960. They'd be considered a lunatic. I think that says it all. And that's it. Gang, have a beautiful and wonderful weekend. I love every one of you. We'll have a bit of a, abbreviated week next week with Thanksgiving. But I do pray that as you're all making your travel plans, that you're safe. God keeps you safe, and God richly blesses you with your loved ones this Thanksgiving year. Take care, guys.